Barclays has set aside an extra £600 million to meet claims for mis-selling of PPI. That's the payment protection insurance thing they had going on. The banking industry's PPI bill is cutting something like £30 billion, a lot of money. And this week, Lloyds also announced they're putting an extra £1 billion aside. They were the biggest players in this. The deadline for making claims has been set at June 2019, so the countdown has begun. Let's talk to economist and wealth manager from Hertfordshire, Jonathan Davis. Jonathan, good afternoon to you.
Hi, Rob.
Jonathan, can we take it back? Is it PPI? Because it doesn't seem to make any sense. What were they trying to do?
I'm sorry, what was who trying to do?
The banks.
Flog insurance when they were arranging a loan, and the insurance paid relatively a high commission to the lender, to the bank, so they pushed it left, right and centre. Even when the insurance policy couldn't possibly ever pay out because, for example, the borrower was self-employed. But, it was pure greed, and some of us call it criminal, but, we haven't seen any of these bankers jailed for anything.
Nor will we. Did they know it was wrong?
Oh, absolutely, no question. The remuneration policy comes from the top, and the targets come from the top. And the board of directors, the chief executive, they hand it out to the regional directors, who hand it out to the sales directors, who hand it out to the sales managers, who hand it out to the salespeople in the branches. Everybody knew what was going on, and it's the state of banking that we have. They can get away with proverbial murder.
And did they assume with PPI, Jonathan, that no one would ever bring them to book? They would just carry on getting away with it?
Well, it's just like the reckless lending that led up to 2008. They assumed that everything would be okay and they'd never be tapped on the shoulder. Well, they've not been tapped on the shoulder for all the criminality that's taken place, but clearly there was sufficient uproar from the consumer associations, from the MPs. My goodness, MPs actually achieved something for once, that eventually the then Financial Services Authority, the super regulator, said enough's enough. People need to be compensated for this mis-selling. And I was actually astonished I didn't know that it had got to £30 billion of compensation.
It is extraordinary.
I have to say, I think it's probably more than people are due. I get the feeling that the banks are simply paying out. If you ask them, am I due any PPI, they're not even bothering to investigate now. It's cheaper for them just to pay it out. But this is the terrible thing. The bankers themselves aren't paying it out. The shareholders from profits are paying out. It's the bankers who should be having it out of their bonuses.
Barclays, an extra £600 million. Lloyds, who are the biggest perpetrators in all this, an extra £1 billion. I know you have your own views on banking, Jonathan. What baffles me here is that they're paying out all this money. They've let a lot of people go in the last few years. They've changed their practice, whether for the better, I don't know. And then sometimes you're looking around for a bank on the high street and just can't find one.
Well, that's I would suggest to you that's a function of technology. The fact is, online banking is what people of today want to do. Clearly, there are still some traditionalists who want to go into a local branch. They don't like online banking, but the fact is, there has been massive growth in usage of online facilities, and that's going to continue. And yes, the branch network will continue to be decimated because fewer and fewer people go into the branches.
Jonathan, if this PPI story, if you're not sure whether you're entitled to any money back still, How do you do? Because there are a lot of people advertising on telly saying they can do this, they can do. Do you just write to your bank saying, "I think you owe me money," and send in a letter hoping that you get a check?
Pretty well. The advertisers that you talk about, they take a substantial percentage of any successful claim. But yes, it's really straightforward. You can do it yourself. There is a particular website. I don't know if I can mention it. You could probably just Google how do I claim PPI, and you'll find template letters. It's a very straightforward process. And as I say, it seems to me that the last 2 or 3 years, the banks aren't even investigating now. They're just paying out. It's quite remarkable.
Jonathan,
as I say, it's not coming from their money. It's coming from the shareholders.
Jonathan, you're an economist and a wealth manager. Say someone gets a cheque back. You hear stories of £3,000, £25,000. What does someone do? They get a cheque. They'll get the sort of funds electronically added to their account. What should they do with that money? Go and buy a new British-built Nissan Qashqai, or invest it somewhere where they might make some money?
Well, it depends on their own personal financial circumstances. If you're basically okay financially, if it were me, I would treat it as a windfall and have a lavish weekend away or a lavish holiday or something like that, depending on how much it is. Yes, I would enjoy it as a windfall because no one expects it in the first place. Of course, if you're tight for money, then you absolutely must reduce your high interest debts, particularly those on overdraft, on credit card if you're paying high interest. So essentially, that's what you've got to do if you're strapped for cash.
Jonathan, thank you. Great as always. Jonathan Davies, economist and wealth manager from Hertfordshire.